Hey guys, Level Cap here. Today we've got an episode of Loadout, the series where you guys, the viewers, get to pick a gun and customization for me to use. The way you do this is you leave a comment down below letting me know what kind of weapon and accessories you'd like me to run with, and I will pick one of the top rated comments for next week's episode. And before we get into today's top comment, there's been a pretty big update from DICE confirming that company coin should have been fixed now for all players. So if you are one of the remaining players who hasn't had their company coin adjusted, where you can't earn company coin in game, it should now be fixed for you, and you should have a nice little stockpile of company coin waiting for you in game once you log in. So great news all around. Hopefully that means we'll be getting some of the new cosmetics added to the game soon. All right, now today's top comment comes from Stephen Mobley, who says the enemy at the gates loadout, scout class. Primary is the Kar98k with a 6x scope. Secondary is the Walther P38. Melee will be using the combat knife for equipment. We'll use throwing knives, spotter scope, and sniper decoy. Combat role, sniper. You play as Major Erwin Koenig, head of the Wehrmacht Sniper School. You will be sent out to hunt down Vasily Zaitsev, but before that, you take your part in the early stages of World War II. Hey Level, I think this would be a fun loadout to try when Russian DLC comes out. You could switch it up and base your loadout on Vasily Zaitsev. Just a thought. Also, congrats about your son. Well, first of all, thank you for the well wishes, Stephen Mobley. For those of you who are more interested in what's going on in my personal life, there's a little bit more info on that on my social media accounts like Twitter. But setting that aside, let's get into the Kar98k. Now, this is a very iconic bolt-action sniper rifle, something that I've been looking forward to trying out in a Battlefield game for a while now. Recently brought back into the public gaming sphere through PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, where the Kar98k is one of the better sniper rifles in the game and one that can one-shot headshot you depending on what kind of helmets you're wearing. Now we have it available in Battlefield 5, and it's one of the better extreme range sniper rifles. I have it spec'd for long range sniping, though I might change that up in the future. This is my specialization at the moment. It is set up for having the least amount of bullet drop at range, meaning it should be easier to get those headshots on targets. You shouldn't have to compensate for drop quite as drastically. The alternative way to spec this weapon is to give it slightly faster rate of fire, and that is probably one of my biggest drawbacks with the Kar98 is that its rate of fire, when you don't pick the faster rechambering specialization, it's pretty hard to use. Basically, it's slow enough that you just need to be aiming for headshots most of the time, because it gives your opponent plenty of time to try and react and get out of harm's way, or at least make themselves a really hard to hit target by the time you can send another round down range. So you really got to focus on those headshots. Now, if you're sniping exclusively at extreme range, then you can make that lower bullet drop specialization more worthwhile. But if you're trying to use it in a more urban environment, and Devastation is certainly a map that looks more like Stalingrad from the movie Enemy at the Gates, then it would be more appropriate to use the faster rechambering. Now, the movie Enemy at the Gates is one of the more recent portrayals of a war-torn Stalingrad in a World War II movie, and in fact, a lot of World War II games have based their portrayal of Stalingrad off of this film. It's definitely worth a watch if you're at all interested in World War II action movies. The plot of it is a bit fictionalized. There was a real Vasily Zaitsev, and he did fight and actually allegedly duel another German sniper who is potentially the head of the German sniping school. But in terms of like the way that it's portrayed in the film, that part of it is quite fictionalized, but it is still a very cool movie to watch. Now, in terms of sniping maps, Devastation certainly isn't my top pick. In fact, I would rarely pick the Recon class to play on Devastation in general. I think you could do much better playing the Assault class with a semi-auto rifle and take out players at the extreme ranges that are available on that map, which are not particularly extreme. So as cool as it is to try and replicate the ambiance of Enemy at the Gates, that probably won't happen in any sort of sniping format unless they make a urban map with some very, very long sight lines. Here we are playing on Narvik, and I feel like this is one of the better maps for sniping, especially when playing on Grand Operations, as you have a good push and defend game mode, which is kind of ideal for snipers, right? You kind of want a situation in which you only have to worry about targets in one direction for the most part, and it gives you a few options to kind of flank off to left or right side of the map and just sort of hone in and deal with enemies. This map's nice because you got a lot of trees and things to hide behind, and you can get yourself into many situations where the enemy just doesn't really understand where you are or where they're taking fire from. Now, in terms of gadgets with this loadout, the first thing that I'm not a huge fan of is using the spotting scope instead of flares. Flares recently got a very nice buff, making them quite useful in most combat situations. In fact, they're invaluable, in my opinion, for clearing off a point. Objective areas are now much bigger than they used to be in other Battlefield games, and you need some sort of spotting device to figure out where players are hiding. The spotting flares are one of the only things in the game that can do that effectively. The spotting scope, although it can be effective if you're coordinating with like a pilot in the sky or a tanker or something like that, just really isn't my favorite. And half the time when I've got it out and I'm spotting enemy soldiers, I'm thinking I could just be shooting these guys. And if you tag them with the sniper perk, they get spotted anyway. So I don't have a huge love for the spotting scope. I think the flare gun is 1,000 times more useful. Sniper decoys. I used them a little bit. You'll see a tiny bit of gameplay at the end of this video of me placing down some sniper decoys. I believe this is how they work. They not only create a scope glint and sort of the image of a stationary sniper somewhere, but if an enemy shoots them, that enemy then I believe gets 3D spotted for your entire team. And I think also the sniper decoy shoots up a spotting flare. I saw him kind of trigger a few times while I had him placed. That's kind of cool, but ultimately, is it better than having a spawn beacon? In my opinion, probably not. The spawn beacon can be absolutely invaluable in many situations. So there's only a few times that I think maybe a sniper decoy might be kind of cool. But in terms of like the concept and replicating some of the tools that these snipers had available to them, especially an enemy at the gates, it kind of fits the bill. Throwing knives instead of grenades probably isn't my personal favorite. I'll admit I'm not very good with throwing knives. They can make some really cool YouTube clips and stuff, and they give you that one-shot kill in close quarters, but I think beyond 12 meters it's no longer a one-shot kill. I actually don't know why DICE has reduced the one-shot kill range of throwing knives, because if you can hit somebody beyond 12 meters with throwing knives, I think you should get the one-shot kill. They're hard to use. Like, you're using one of the worst one-shot kill weapons in the game, and DICE has made them even more difficult to kill somebody at range. I mean, compared to a shotgun, a rifle fire grenade, any of the rocket launchers in the game, those can all give you one-shot kills, and they're significantly easier to get a hit than the throwing knives for the most part. So I just think, you know, why not give them infinite range? You already nerfed the quantity. You only get 2 in total. They're incredibly slow traveling, so hitting a moving target at any sort of range is extremely difficult, especially if that target is juicing. You may as well just consider it impossible. So I think throwing knives are cool and they're fun for a challenge and stuff, but I can't shake the feeling that they feel a bit more gimmicky and a bit more like they're suited for YouTube highlight reels more than anything, which is fine. I actually don't mind that they're in the game, and when somebody kills me with a throwing knife, I'm kind of like, oh shit, you got me, man. Like, good for you. That's a tricky thing to do. Now, in terms of using the P38 as a sidearm, it works. It's certainly not one of my favorite sidearms. I prefer the 1911 or revolver over this one even. The 1911, I don't know, just feels a little bit better. I think it does more damage per shot, which gives you a higher chance of needing only 1 or 2 follow-up shots if you get a body shot in close quarters. P38, you're probably going to need a few more shots. One of the best combos to try and get good with is getting that body shot in close quarters and then hopefully a one-shot with a revolver as a follow-up. But again, that's hard to do. DICE has really nerfed the pistols and frankly the sniper rifles for the most part in Battlefield 5, and so the relationship of the bolt action rifle and pistol just ain't what it used to be. Even like Battlefield 4 had the aggressive recon potential, where Battlefield 5 makes the aggressive recon trickier. You got things like throwing knives, but you're not able to do the bolt action pistol switch combo as reliably anymore because of the massive damage drop-offs for both bolt action rifles in close quarters and pistols. And you saw that throwing knife hit right there for 82 in close quarters. Again, barely squeaking out of this situation for close quarter fighting. It's just tricky to do. You'll see a little bit more close quarter fighting here on the final clip, putting down a sniper decoy and using every trick in the book to try and stay alive here. It kind of works and it looks cool, but is it reliable? Absolutely not. Is it super effective? Absolutely not. Again, another long range throwing knife hit for no kill. So thematically, I really like the Loadout. I'm not a huge fan of the Kar98 in general. I think I prefer the Krag and the M95 a bit more as bolt-action rifles, but it's fun to use this iconic rifle. The gadgets, again, are not my favorite for overall effectiveness, but you can get used to them and try and make them work in different situations. Anyway, that wraps it up for today's episode of Loadout. Don't forget to leave your comments down below, letting me know what kind of kit and customization you'd like me to run with for next week's episode. Don't forget to check to see if your company coin has been fixed with the latest update to the game, as that is one of the last big issues DICE needs to solve before implementing the microtransaction system. And I'll see you guys next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.